No shit, Amy lifts a leg and pisses on enemies. I love it.
I don't know if your sound is turned on, but thank you. I heard you. I don't know if your sound is turned on, but thank you. I heard you.
We'll do that next time. I just want to say. Our giant artichoke. Okay. There's a save point in here. What's it? Yeah. Octocock, yeah. Octocock. Beware of Octocock. Well, thank you guys all for hanging out tonight. I had fun. We got some good Dark Souls 2 in. We got some Tommy. I'm gonna say this game is at the start. Jeez, excuse me. At the start, the game was a little like dialogue intensive and like tutorial intensive. But that's games, especially when it came out on the PS2 era. But thank you all very much. All fucking rock. Mods being awesome. Used to thank you for that host. Oceana gifted a sub to Jay Cook and Mike. Thank you. We had that host from Justin earlier too, and a raid from Gina. We also had the 6-month resub with Kahuna. Sub from Fortune, Spank Bank. And then a Twitch Prime resub for 14 months from that. Oh yeah, thank you. Good night, everybody. Everybody in the club get bits. Everybody in the club get bits. Maybe we need to make a remix of that. Everybody get bits. Let's take a look here. Echo. Posted him last night.
Oh, hello, Ahmed. I'm looking at a message there. Yeah, I'm doing some testing. Got a stream tomorrow night, and I want to get things running as best as I can. Shut that voice off. The big issue I've been trying to deal with lately is getting the chat to overlay the game, because I can't see the chat when I play the game. I'm running a one monitor setup right now. My second monitor, the computer, is broke. Sound very low. Okay. I think I can do some. Is it my voice that's very low? I've got this mic turned up all the way. I think that's the only adjustment I have to sound. But you know, I've been running into that problem. Okay, well I can see the chat there when I'm on this page. And okay, well as you can see, I've got the chat over on the game as well. I think that I think this chat shows up. I don't know if this chat shows up for you in the upper left corner of the game screen. I was just upstairs looking at a third computer that my wife is working on, and the chat overlay in the upper left corner was a dark box. It appears to me is a totally opaque overlay. I don't like the idea of covering up the game screen with a lot of stuff. Okay. Well, that's okay because you can see the chat if you're watching the video game in what do they call it? The cinema mode, something like that. Yeah, theater mode. That's what they call it, theater mode. Like I watch a lot of games in the right. The last thing I want to do, and I've had it happen. I had a couple guys follow me while I was playing the game, and I didn't even know they were in chat. And that's not too good. You know, you want to acknowledge those people, say hello. You know, at least if they're going to follow, even if they're lurking, if they follow, you say, thanks for following. I guess it's Twitch etiquette not to call out somebody who's lurking. Don't try to pull them into conversation if they're just staying quiet, not interacting with chat, and just lurking. Yeah, the two monitor system is really great, and I want to get to that. I had a killer second computer, but it's like 12 years old. It was a let's see, an Asus M232 M2N32 SLI, so it supported two screens. It was an awesome computer, but being 12 years old, it it started to give me trouble. Uh, I just got it going again the other day. I was locked out. I couldn't remember my password. I knew what the hint was telling me. I knew what the password was, but I didn't know, well, geez, did I start it? Yeah, I see, I hear, I understand a lot of people watch their stream through their chat. I hear it's really difficult because it's such small print. Well, yeah, I spent hours trying to unlock myself out of that computer. I know how to do it. Your BIOS window appears for a couple seconds while it's loading before your operating system takes over. And you're supposed to be able to press delete or F8 or F2 or something like that, depending on the OS. And you can get in there, you can do a safe start. Maybe I'm telling you stuff you already know. And you can change the password, and then you can get out, get back in, and away you go. That BIOS screen only showed itself once when I first fired up the computer and got the screen working. After that, I could never get it to appear. So, they tell you, restart and just keep on tapping the F8 or the F2 or the delete, and that's going to get you in. And I've had that work in the past. It didn't work this time. It totally locked up the screen, and the OS wouldn't even load up. It just wasn't acting consistent. It's like I said, it's a 12-year-old computer. It's not worth putting any money into. Yeah, I tried all kinds of crap. I tried reloading Windows. Uh, it, yeah, and I don't know if the BIOS was set to automatically update. I tended to stay away from automatic updates. A lot of times they just cause more trouble than they're worth. But I've changed my mind since then because there are instances where you need those updates or you end up things don't work. So, I drank the Kool-Aid and now I do everything on automatic updates. But when I was setting up this computer, I probably didn't. I'm pretty sure I didn't. And I was thinking, well, I guess I can go out and buy a. Yeah, yeah. It's like I said, I drank the Kool-Aid. I think it's the thing to do, the automatic update. I make it ask me though. I just want to know what it's doing. So if something messes up, like I know that, oh well, it just updated, so that's probably what happened. Yeah, that's what most of the. Oh, hello, hello, solar UAV. Thanks for the compliment. Well, if you've looked at my Twitch page, cover page, I tried to make a pretty good description on what I'd like to see happen here. I've been watching streaming for only 3 years, but it seems like they're all following the same program of success. They all do the same thing, but a little bit different. And I'm not trying to follow that most successful mold. Your highest percentage of, and Twitch has statisticians studying this stuff as to how to be the most successful streamer you can. I mean, they make more money that way. They're a huge corporation. They can do that. So they've got everybody on the same page as to how to behave and what to do with their stream to be as successful as they can. And if you've seen my Twitch page, hey, dare to be different. Use that as your strength. And I don't care if I get 1,000 viewers or 5,000 followers or whatnot. I'm not trying to make money on Twitch. I'm trying to raise awareness for horse farms. Um, my farm happens to be the closest farm to a, a large town, a small city center. And there's only another one a little further away from me, and the rest are farther and farther out into the country. So, a farm like mine, the developers have been watching for decades since I was very young. Hey, what's going on with the farm? What are you going to do with the farm? Yada, yada, yada. Thinking that we needed money and they wanted to buy the farm for my father in law. Chop it up, turn it into a moonscape, strip off all the topsoil, cut down all the trees, and to turn it into a McDonald's or a 7-Eleven or a condo site or something like that. And yeah, constantly. And they're fishing for suckers. They're hoping you're gonna let the stuff go for 10 cents on a dollar or something like that. And luckily, we've never had economic problems, so that wasn't going to work with us. Um, Me and my wife just bought it from her parents a couple years ago. We want to keep it going, but I'm thinking ahead, and we don't have children. We've got no one to leave this farm to, and I don't want to see nephews chop it up into pieces and I'll sell it for a piece of money. I'm trying to turn it into a self-supporting horse farm, so it'll it'll even pay for a management company to manage it. So whoever ends up inheriting it, it'll be income to them, and it won't have the incentive to sell it. I, I'm trying to set up a trust so that it has to stay in the family. There's a lot of tweaking and lawyer speak and stuff that we got to do to get through that. I should probably change since I'm not running the game. I should change to this. You get to see a big picture of my ugly mug, and yeah, land is the only real estate, and they're not making any more of it. Yeah, um, this farm was almost twice as big at one time back when my grandmother had it. But when she retired, they were chopping little pieces off it, road frontage, because road frontage is very valuable, and that kept her going for decades and through her retirement. And then her son took it over, and he didn't need to sell anything. And now he's 80 something, 83, and he's trying to, he tried selling it so that his kids wouldn't fight over it. It's not in probate. Try to wrap up, take care of your business while you're still alive. And he found a buyer, and they were playing hardball. And I said to my wife, geez, can you really imagine not being able to walk out in that acreage across the field through the woods? I got all kinds of scrap steel stored out there as raw material, lumber, topsoil, spare junk car for parts and stuff. It's like, can you imagine not having that. We can afford it. It's an investment. It'll be part of our retirement. So now we got it, and I want to see it last into the future. But not. This isn't just a personal thing. It's for everybody. You know, we all know that the large conglomerate corporate farms are just killing the mom and pop farms. You just can't make. It's very difficult to make any money operating a farm. You know, the economy of scale that these corporate people have. A little guy, it's just hard to compete with that. You know, the times have changed. Yeah, Walmart. Oh, don't get me started on all this Chinese junk that has flooded our market. I don't know, Solar. I don't know how old you are, but I know Ahmed D&D there, Junkie. You're not too much younger than I am. Maybe you remember the Japanese in the '60s. They flooded our market with transistor radios. That was their foot in the door. Everybody was walking around with a transistor radio. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm like my grandfather. I'm talking like my grandfather. World's going to hell in a handbasket. But you know, if you look at, I'll show you one of my other pages here. The yin and the yang. You know, the duality in nature. You know, things are getting better. They're getting worse, but they're also getting better. It's always a mixture of the two. So you know, it's hard to say that the grand philosophical question is: would mankind be better off 1,000 years ago, 5,000 years ago? Pick a date if you think you could say that mankind would have been better off staying at that time in history and not developed any further. I think it's always going to be a 50-50 argument. You know, I really don't know. And get a little deeper philosophically, I think that we're where we are because this is where we're supposed to be at this time. I don't think this is the end. This isn't where we're supposed to finally finish off. Yeah, I've thought about this for years there. I've been trying to pick a time. When would we be better off? You could say, oh, you could go back so far where there was no pollution. True, but there wasn't medicine, you know? Or you know, or how about the oppression of the masses? Oh my God! You know, you want to talk about freedom? Um, not to misunderstand today's freedom as true freedom, because we're actually all wage slaves, and you know, democracy kind of really is it's a little bit of an illusion of freedom, partially. Yeah, so I look at things as a Darwinian kind of a evolutionary thing. I think mankind has evolved to this point because evolutionary pressures made it this way, and evolutionary pressures are continued to change it, and hopefully towards the better. I mean, if the whole Darwinianism thing is you know, the theory kind of makes sense. You know, the strong survive, the better ideas are going to hang out. That things will get better. The glass is half full, fellas. Things will get better. Yeah, I mean, economically, you know, the rift between the haves and the have-nots. I mean, this is a common theme. You know, in academia, you know, if you've watched the movie The Grand Canyon, um, you know, you could be in a rich neighborhood, say, what's that place out in California? You know, Beverly Hills. You can walk down a road, turn down an alley, and there's a dude living in a cardboard box. You know, and it's a mixture of the, the extremely wealthy and the extremely poor. I like to bring up the French Revolution. I've been saying for a long time, and you got to be careful how you understand this. I'll explain it. That you know, this country needs a good French Revolution, um, just an upheaval of the powers that be, to give some just a little bit more back to the people. Not to say you would do something like, say, the communists did, where they took all the wealth, they gave it to the poor. Of course, the poor couldn't manage it, and so the wealthy ended up with it again. And they say that's what would happen right now if you try to do some kind of a wealth redistribution, that eventually the wealthy would end up with the money all over again. I saw something that was having that discussion. They said that what's the difference? What's one of the biggest difference between the French people and the American people? And the answer was amazing. They said in America, the people are afraid of their government. And that's true. I believe it. But in France, the government is afraid of the people. You know, that French Revolution was a real nasty thing. You just think about it. All the peasants that were starving, they killed all the princes and the princesses and the kings and the queens and the aristocracy and the rich people and the influential people. They just off with their heads, and they started a whole new thing. And the French government hasn't forgotten that. Hasn't forgotten that. Of course, you know, we can't condone revolution with bullets and stuff. You know, we're all about the ballot, not the bullet, right? We're supposed to vote for change, but even that saying in itself is it's a trap. I mean, this last election is proof of that, right? It doesn't matter who you vote for. I like to use the analogy that, okay, in this country, it's a two-party system. You know, there's never been a third party that's ever done anything. It's a two-party system. Let's just agree to say that. So it's the Republicans and the Democrats. Now, I look at that as, say, a football team. One team is the offense. The other team is the defense. They're both fighting each other to have better stats. But they're playing against us. We're the opponent. It's both those parties against the population of America. That's what we're fighting against. It doesn't matter who you vote for. They're all against us. You know this. You know the story. It's all lip service. So I was showing you in some of my screens. I've been doing a lot of work with OBS. This is the window I stream on. Normally the rest of yeah, this is the box that's showing up. This is what I'm working on tonight. Trying to get this box not to appear over top of the game. I'm playing Fallout 4. I think my my description on my game shows me that. And might be right back. This is actually a slideshow over here. I'm trying to get a bunch of pictures of horses. I think that would be much better, but you know, hey, who doesn't love kittens and these are all my pets, by the way. That's Kitty. The other one was Remy. And this is Sir Bubba, my beagle. Sir Bubba. He's a thoroughbred beagle, although he's been neutered. I don't know what else do I got here. Oh, let me lock that. That's just an experiment. Point well taken, D&D Action Junkie. Point well taken. You know, they're swimming in a shark tank. And if they want to survive, they got to grow teeth, just like everybody else. You get a lot of one-term senators that go in, they truly try to do the right thing, but they're in the middle of poison. They just get drummed out of office. They have no longevity. They can't do the right thing because everything is dirty politics. And you have to play that game if you want to get anything done. The system is broke. The system is broke. The greed, it's just horrible. You know, we're starting up this horse farm. It was a cow farm for, I don't know, we've been on this farm now 5 generations. So for the first three, there was cows on his farm, milk cows, horse chickens, and other stuff. Um, but when the grandma died and things just went fallow, but we sell hay. It's a hay farm right now. That's how we can pay cheap enough taxes on the property, so it's worth having. Otherwise, our municipality would just love to tax us as if it were building lots. You know, a lot of farmers they try to qualify for woodland, and we've got a lot of woodland also. But if you can qualify for agriculture, and in this state, all you got to do is sell $2,500 worth of agricultural product. Agricultural product. You got to know the definition of that, which hay is one of them. And you have to sell 2,500, and you have to receive 2,500. And now you're considered agricultural, and you pay very low taxes, and this farm pays for itself. It's not going to pay our bills. But yeah, we want to get horses because my father-in-law loves horses, and he's 83, so this would be great to get a few horses for him to ride his truck out into the field, visit with the horses, and the sunset of his life, and enjoy the horses. And it still makes a good idea that, yeah, well, we're going to start boarding horses. We don't want to invest a bunch of money and be trapped into needing to make it back. That's a trap, It turns you into a business where you got to start maybe behaving badly to make profit because you feel you got to make your money back. Where, yeah, I mean, how do you? What little girl doesn't want a horse? And they're similar to dogs, not the smartest dogs, but you can train them. You can bond with them. There's some very smart horses out there if you spend the time with them. But being in Connecticut, there's a lot of rich people that they just put their horse in a farm somewhere. They come down once a month, give it a kiss, and take off. And they pay a lot of money to have people take care of their horse. But we've got the barn, and like I was saying earlier, the farm went fallow. The fields were encroached. There was trees 6-8 inches in diameter taking up the fields, full of brush and scrub. What used to be 3 acres of corn became brush and trees. And so the last 2 years I've been in there clearing it. I finally got those 3 acres back. Cutting, chopping, burning, dragging, mowing every week just to get that scrub down and not let the weeds take over and get a good grass to take place. And I got a fence. I got to put the fence up where this is the season. This spring is where we're going to start marketing and try to get our first boarders in. There's a barn there. I can fit 3 horses in there. So I'm going to start with that. Yeah, it's very therapeutic doing that kind of work. Luckily, I'm basically retired, and I don't know, different definitions of retired, right? I'm not in the building trades like I used to. I spent a large part of my life as a carpenter, framing houses and stuff like that. Construction, one form or another, digging ditches. I mean, being the ground guide for machine operators. And then I spent a lot of time in manufacturing, inspection, running machines. At the Pinnacle, I was called a mechanical engineer. Did a lot of stuff like that too. But I don't do that now. I take on small jobs that I feel like taking. I basically get 1099. I still got to fill out taxes, but I work for myself. I don't need to go into work every day, punch a clock. I work. I try not to work more than 4 hours a day, a few days a week. I try not to even do that, but it's kind of hard to turn them out, down the money. You know, and that raises a really good point. You know, this really stinks. You spend your working years trying to make a buck, and no one wants to pay you. But once you try to retire, they double. They will pay, beg, borrow, steal, anything to keep you working. They were just taking advantage of you all those years. And once you're at the pinnacle of your career, when you're as good as anybody ever gets, they don't want to let you go. Of course, they never wanted to pay you until that point. So it's hard to say no to the money. You know, it's hard to say no to extra money. Like it's like for me, it's like play money. You don't have to rationalize why you're gonna dip into your budget to buy a new truck or buy a new computer or whatever fun thing you might want to spend money on. It's extra money. It's disposable income. Yeah, yeah, good point, Ahmed. Yeah, um, I agree 100%. I think that's kind of well known too. Um, it's so bad, and I've seen it. A couple people in my family, they were very intelligent. Uh, One guy, one of my uncles, he had like 3 patents that went to the moon. My grandfather and his brother started a manufacturing plant. They made a lot of aircraft parts, high end stuff. The backpack that went to the moon, they were doing machine elements on that. And both these guys died of Alzheimer's. So just look at the how ironic it is to have been so intelligent and smart throughout your life to waste away with Alzheimer's. Talk about a cruel fate. And just to finish off the Alzheimer's thing, you know, I heard that they're finding higher levels of aluminum in the brains of these people with Alzheimer's. So I'm like, okay, aluminum cookery, TV dinners. They're getting their aluminum in antacids. There's an aluminum oxide or something in some of these antacids. I don't know if it's Tums or which one it is. It's like, okay, well, you know, once I heard that, it's like, okay, well, I'm not going to use aluminum pans anymore. I'm not going to cook with aluminum foil anymore. I'm going to stop taking that antacid that had aluminum in it. Aluminum in it. I don't know about you guys, but I read the ingredients on everything I eat, and I try to eat stuff that's as healthy as I can get it. I mean, you gotta just give up and accept that eating healthy isn't the cheapest way to eat. You know, we all try to save money, right? But and we all have a different economic equation and budget for how much money we can spend on things. Um, yeah, exactly right, Ahmed. And there's another. I watch a lot of educational programming. I don't watch sitcoms or almost no reality TV, but I do watch The Voice and American Idol because I love music. But what this program said was the best food, and think about it, the best food in a grocery store, a big box store like a Stop and Shop or something like that, is around the perimeter of the store. Think about it. The milk and the cheese, that's against the wall in the back. The meat, you know, the hamburger and the chicken and the fish, that's on one wall. The fruits and vegetables, that's on another wall. And what's in all those aisles in between? Macaroni and cheese in a box, right? All that processed food. Yeah, you're lucky, Ahmed. I'm the cook in my house, and I'm quite all right with that. My wife still works a large corporate job, and I take all the pressure off her that I can, because I can. I'm a pretty good cook. I came from a family where my this was back in the '60s, where single family, a mom with 4 kids, it was very rare. We were one of those families. I was I was raised dirt poor, and I had to cook, help mom out. When we were all old enough, she could start working. I was the babysitter. I did all the cooking. My wife was just checking in on me. Normally, she knows if I'm sitting here talking that I'm running live. I tell her to be careful. You come in here yelling at me about something that's going to go all over the internet. Someone's going to be taping it. It's going to become a meme, and before you know it, your face is going to be all over the internet, and everybody at work is going to be shaming you. So be careful what you say. Charlie, Ahmed says hello. She's been called Charlie ever since she was a little girl. She says hello back, by the way. She's a twin. Her twin sister is called Bud, Bud and Charlie. Charlie for Charlene, I guess. And I don't know what Bud has to do with the word Darlene, but they were farm girls. They were tomboys growing up. They drove big dump trucks and stuff like that. Yeah, I do the dishes as well. I do a lot of the cleaning. Uh, Mostly, my biggest participation in the house is I'm a jack of all trades. I can fix almost anything. Like just today, like I said, we bought that farm. Well, it came with a little farmhouse, and the tenant that we rent to calls up. He's got a leak in the plumbing. Well, we're about ready to get hit by a big storm, and this happened at night. That's in Connecticut. That's basically a $500 bill that some plumber is going to suck out of your wallet to come up and fix that. Well, I fix that. I do the brakes on the car and the mufflers and the leaf springs and the ball joints and rebuilding carburetors and swapping out engines, fixing the cars, the electrical, the plumbing, the painting, the carpentry, the yard work, even fixing computers and figuring out how to fix things I never even had to work on before. I tell everybody you could learn brain surgery if you watched enough YouTube videos. I recently installed a tankless water heater in my house. I just kept watching and watching videos, and finally I learned how to do it. And there's been other things I've done too, but I don't want to talk about that because it's just public information. Some things, municipalities frown on you working on. Well, it saves you a lot of money, Ahmed. Just think about it. Just think about it. I like my brother. He's got a pretty good paying career. Um, he doesn't want to come home and change the oil in his car because he's got an hour and a half commute one way or an hour and 15-minute commute one way. He works long hours. He works hard. He wants to spend time with his wife and daughter. So he pays people. So you've got that, and I tell people, I go, well, you better either learn to do things yourself or you better make an awful lot of money because you're going to have to pay people to fix this stuff. And if you're in the middle somewhere, it's a never-ending battle. You're making medium wages, and when you try to get ahead, boom, something's broke. And you're paying your money, and you're never getting ahead. Yeah, a lot of people don't want the hassle. I remember when I was painting for a few years, I had my own business. I was painting houses, was one of the things I did. I didn't want to come home and paint my house. Same thing as a carpenter. I'm busting my ass all day long carrying plywood up 2 stories and carrying rafters and busting my ass. I don't want to come home and replace my roof. Yeah, well, it's a balance between your family and your career. It's kind of funny, there's, if we just divide it up simply into those two sides, I got a buddy of mine who I used to hang out with him. He bought his house and we were fixing it up. And that's the way you get ahead is you don't just do your day job. When you get home, you work more, either on another job or you fix all these things that need fixing so that you don't have to pay someone to fix it. So we're fixing the foot valve in as well. We're putting the deck on the house. We put a new roof on the house. I remember drilling holes through his foundation for water pipes. Countless things to fix and improve the house. And his wife used to complain. She wanted him sitting on the couch watching TV with her and their boy. Okay, that's scenario number one. Now the other scenario is this guy who comes home from work, cracks open a beer, sits down at the dinner table or on the couch watching TV, and the family's in. Now this wife is telling him to get off his dead ass and go out and mow the lawn and go out and do something. So these guys need to change husbands and wives so they're both on the same channel. Uh, no need to be sorry there, Ahmed. The more you talk, the better off. Um, I could actually literally talk forever. I got to be careful not to keep getting sidetracked because I'll get to rambling and jumping from one topic to another, and not completely finish discussing one or the other. But I'm trying. I'm keeping up with chat, and I'm trying to keep my chat relevant to what you're saying. No, I love it when people can talk. Different people have different skills for talking. Um, the thing I think that's important when people are talking, it should be a two-way conversation, two-way communication. Too many times you get one person who just wants to hear themselves talk, and they just talk and they talk and they talk and they don't take a breath and they never let you in the conversation. They're talking to you, they're actually lecturing to you 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes. I know bunches of people like that. It drives me nuts. I start to mess with them because I can't take it. I can't take it. It needs to be a two-way street. And I'm kind of lucky as far as doing the work I do because we don't have children. So I don't have to come home. I never had to come home and spend time with the kids. Yeah, Ahmed, it's funny how that is. I knew this person. I don't want to give out too many details, but I knew this person, and I'm talking to their father, and he's doing all the talking. He's doing all the talking. He's talking and talking and talking and talking. And I could tell he was the kind of dude that wanted to hear himself talk. He was pretty intelligent, and he's going on and on and on, and it was very difficult to get into the conversation. And his son was the same way. And later on, the person, not the person doing all the talking, but this other person said to me, "Geez, I noticed you didn't have much to say." I said, "Oh no, I had plenty to say, but I could tell that guy was the kind of guy that liked to hear himself talk, so I let him." And you should have seen the face on this person, like, Well, there's different reasons why some of these people talk so much. I know this one guy at a religious club, the Knights of Columbus, I belong to. The guy just talks and talks and talks and talks. And come to find out, he had one of those very over controlling female wives with a daughter in the house who was the same. And so when this poor guy was home, he never could get a word in edgewise. He was always being bossed around by his wife. She was doing all the talking, and he's just yes dear and yes dear and taking care of the daughter the whole way through. But when he went out to the club and had a couple beers, the guy finally had a chance to talk, and he would never shut up. It used to drive me crazy. I tried to get a couple words in, and it's like, and I shamed him. I'm like, geez, you got to be like that, because we're all friends. We treat each other like brothers in an organization like that. So I just came out and hit him with the cold truth. It's like, dude, do I ever get a word in? Yeah, right. He's releasing energy, and so I played it kind of in an understanding way, because somebody else was complaining about it at another time, and I says, well, you got to understand, and I explained what I just said to this person that he's venting, he doesn't get the chance, so just realize that that's why he's doing what he's doing, not to like hate on him for it or something like that. I suppose what I'm doing right now is kind of similar. I sit up on this hill in this house. I don't go out. It's okay, guys. He's married. I don't have that social experience anymore. I stopped going to that club for reasons that maybe someday I'd go into. Um, I used to work security at a venue where they have rock shows and a music venue, and so that was my social experience. I'd go out and I saw hundreds and hundreds of music shows, and standing at the front door and walking the corridors, I would talk to people, and so that was my social thing, because human beings are social animals. We're not meant to live alone. We're supposed to be communicating and talking with each other and living in groups. And exactly right, Ahmed. It's the family, and I'd like to expand on that a little bit more and say it's not the nuclear family that it's turned into now. Mommy and daddy with the kids living in the house. If you think about it, years ago, the grandparents lived in the house as well, and sometimes a cousin. It was the extended family. Nowadays, a lot of people don't really have close relationships with their cousins, and especially not their second cousins. Um, the large family unit has been disintegrating, and I'll take it a step further. I truly believe it's a conspiracy. It's might sound crazy, but if you think about it, Yeah, I mean, you're there. You can't beat family. I mean, there's been times in my life where I've known dozens and dozens of friends, you so-called friends, but when the crap hits the fan and the chips are down, you find out who your friends really are. When you really need help in something and you're calling your friends and they all got excuses or they're not answering their phones, you find out the value of what your friends really are. And then you find out the value of what your family is because, you know, your family will love you even if you're a blazing asshole because you're family. You know, blood is thicker than water and all that kind of thing. I heard a real good definition of what a true friend is, and that's somebody who will stick their neck out for you, expecting nothing in return. Yeah, well, I think the advantage it's political and it's economical for the large corporations. You know, in this country, large corporations and politics are basically the same thing. They say that we're a democracy, but we're really not. There's a whole bunch of forms of government. You know, a theology where the state is run by religion, Iran, for example. Um, I forget. There's monarchies, the kind that run by kings. Plutocracy. I forget what that one. Autocrats, like say a Stalin or something like. Well, maybe a Hitler. You know, one man. There's a whole bunch of them. I forget what the word is. It's when the state, the country is run by big business. And that's what this country truly is. This country, the politics are run by big business. It's an illusion, this whole democracy or this democratic republic is, we're not even a democracy. We're a democratic republic. A lot of people, they buy into this propaganda that they're fed through elementary school and they don't really realize what's going on. So that kind of government really does better when they can, the old strategy to divide and conquer. You break up the family. Remember what Hitler did in World War II? You making those Nazi youths rat on their parents. He had neighbors ratting on neighbors. When you've got family members ratting on family members, that is truly dividing and conquering. And that's kind of what's happening now. The families are losing their strength, their cohesiveness, and their economic power as well. Like the rich families. When you break up the families, you break up that power, and that gives the power to the politicians and the corporations. Not only that, but it's good for business. Just think, everybody's got to buy their own house. Instead of 6 or 8 people living in a house, you've got 3 or 4. So they all have to buy a refrigerator. They all have to buy a car. They all have to buy this. Yeah. So just think of the boost in economy it makes when you've got smaller families like that. I, uh, I'm thankful all the time for the family that I've got. They've pulled me out of trouble a couple times. No one else would. Well, let me tell you, Ahmed, how tight this family is. Let me tell you. Um, they die in their own beds. When my grandmother in law passed back in the 80s, she never spent a day in the hospital. I mean, I don't mean she'd never got sick or went to a doctor. I mean, she didn't go to a nursing home. Nobody pawned her off into a nursing home. Somebody went down there and made her breakfast, helped her get out of bed, carried her to the toilet, put her back in bed. Somebody else went down there for lunch. Somebody else went down there for dinner. Somebody else went down there later on in the evening and put her to bed. And other people at various times would stop in between. There's a lot of people in this family, and that's how they take care of each other. They're not going to stick somebody in a home somewhere. Yeah, and that's one side of my family, and the other side, my mother, my sister took her in. It's a boy's dream to always build a house for his mom. Well, I got my sister to pay for it. I built a mother-in-law addition onto my sister's house. And when my mom retired, she lived there for years, helping my sister with her business. And then after I don't know how many years of that, my other sister took her in, where she finally passed away after a few years. But I had to thank that brother-in-law for letting my sister bring my mother down into his house. You know, a lot of people wouldn't stand for that. They'd make you stick the person in an old folks home or something like that. And that just is not cool. Yeah, you know, Ahmed, I think Egypt and other foreign countries probably understand the importance and meaning of family far more than Americans do. I don't know, that's kind of a knee jerk reaction thing to say, but right now, just kind of thinking off the cuff, you know, I don't know if there's another culture that might be worse to their adults than Americans are, I'd hate to say. Um, Traditionally, I know that at least the Japanese and maybe other Asians were very, they venerated the, the old people, honored them. What that grandfather said was gold. You didn't treat him like some kind of senile person. You honored the. That was one of their big tenets in their society, to honor the aged. Yeah, yeah, time and money, chasing the big buck. Well, you know, you're making a good comment there. The difference between cities and country. I'm not in the middle of nowhere, but I'm basically in the country. But I'm not that far from a city. But the point I wanted to make is it's called the village principle. And what it says is the more people in your village, large city, New York, the more they don't care about each other and the more they treat each other as competition over limited resources, food, women, jobs. But the fewer the people that there are out in a small village, like maybe a town of 2,000 or a town of 100, the more they look at each other as resources, someone that will help you. You're not looking at them as competition because there aren't limited resources. You might help that guy chop some firewood, but he's going to plow your half-mile long driveway. So you're more friendlier to people in smaller groups like that. The village principle. When I first heard that, it's like a bell went off in my head, and I'm like, yeah, yeah. And if I remember, it was just within the last year or two that we finally reached a point in America where more people, just barely 51% of our population, now live in cities as opposed to the rural, middle America, flyover zone. that everybody talks about why Trump won the vote was because he didn't concentrate on New York and California, where the big metropolitan areas are. Of course, Florida, Chicago. There's a couple big population metropolis areas, megapolises and whatnot. But he went to Middle America, and I still think that Middle America still has a lot of power. This is kind of unless you know the show The Voice, where it's a contest where Americans vote for who's the best singer. Often it's a cowboy country singer, because Middle America has a lot of pull. All those little towns calling in on their cell phones have an awful lot of power still, but it's the balance just turned, and now we've got more people living in the cities. And we got the Hillary Clinton crowd who complains about how she lost the vote electorally, but she won the popular vote. So they're trying to push for getting rid of the Electoral College. Now, a lot of people are buying into that because they don't really understand how that works. But if you get rid of the Electoral College, Middle America is never going to have a voice in politics ever again. It's going to be New York and California, these people that live in big cities, they're going to decide what happens in this country. That 51% that's about to be 52, 53, I don't know where it's going to go, but you're going to get a large portion of America that has no say in what happens in this country if they get rid of the Electoral College. The founding fathers of this country, I don't know where they got their sense to figure out what was going to work in the future. I don't know of any other, and I don't know a lot about this, but I don't think there's any other country that has an electoral college. I don't know. Yeah, back to small towns, I just love it. I can get in my truck. I can drive somewhere. I can drive by a stranger and they're going to wave to me. They don't know me. I don't know them. But when I pull into the cities, say a city of, well, maybe the closest one to me, it's a small city. I don't know if it's actually correctly a city, but they call it a city. I think it's got like under 15,000 people, 14,000, 12,000, I don't know. When I drive through those neighborhoods, nobody waves to me. Nobody waves to me. I see people looking, maybe suspiciously, I don't know. I see people looking, but they're not waving. I went way out into the country one time, and I was out in the middle of nowhere, truly the middle of nowhere. These are places like in upper state New York, way out in the middle of nowhere, where there's more cows than there are people. True cow towns. And I drive by this one guy, and he starts waving at me so enthusiastically. He was so happy, waving so energetically. He was just so glad to see another person. Because seeing people was so rare out there. Just think of that show years ago when you were a kid, The Waltons, living up on Walton's Mountain. You got, I don't know, a dozen people living up on that farm. And such a treat it was to take a horse and buggy ride into Charlottesville, I think was the name of the nearest town, for supplies. Other than that, those poor bastards were sitting up on that hill looking at each other, the same 12 people, all the time. Yeah, I mean, take a left at the crossroads, right? If you say take a left at the crossroads, there weren't a lot of roads. So everybody knew where the crossroad was. There was one. And there was probably one gas station and one bent tree. Yeah, well, Ahmed, maybe you can get back to that sometime. You know, and that's the thing. Cities drew the farmers to the city for work, for jobs, for money, to make money. People, I think it's their nature to be covetous. When they know of something that's nice or cool, they want it. If they didn't know about it, they wouldn't desire it. So they had to go make money so they could have that stuff. I'm not too sure what it is in nature that makes people covetous, to make them want stuff that, for why? Because they saw someone in a TV commercial having it, or because their neighbor had it, and so they want one too. Um, I think people would be so much better off if they just learned to, leave well enough alone, be satisfied with what they got, and not to live above their means. I think that's the biggest thing going on right now. People are living above their mean. Yeah, yeah. Farm life. Well, they say that money's the root of all evil. Well, that's a misquote. Really, it's the love of money that's the root of all evil. Not money itself, it's the love of money, greed. You're using the word just right there, Ahmed. Greed. I mean, money's a great thing because it's a medium of exchange that everybody can get a fair deal on. It's like, how many chickens does it take to buy a cow, right? How many cows does it take to get your field plowed? I mean, money's a good medium for exchange, but the whole greed thing over having money, that's something that's crazy. Yeah, well, they say what makes money worth money? The American dollar used to be based on gold and silver. The gold certificate, the silver certificate, you could take it to a bank and you could demand $1 worth of silver or $1 worth of gold. In some way, shape, or form, you could exchange it for gold or silver. And I don't know, I think it was in my lifetime that they took the dollar off the gold standard, or at least it was in my grandfather's or father's time. They took the dollar off the gold standard. So now the only thing that gives the American dollar value is faith. Faith. People have faith that the the dollar is going to be worth $1. It's crazy, but you know, it's basic. Well, I probably shouldn't have done that. There we go. I guess our currency is one of the strongest ones on the planet, although China's owning more and more of it, and we're becoming in greater and greater debt with China, and that's going to be a thing sometime. We'll see about that. Yeah, inflation. That's a strange bird there. Inflation. If inflation could be kept equal, then it wouldn't matter. Like, let's just say my paycheck doubled, but my expenses doubled. So it doesn't matter. You're still in the same place you always were. $10 buys $10 worth of goods. Well, now that same $10 of goods might cost $20. But if your pay doubled, because that's what's happening, our pay is increasing and the prices of everything are increasing. But here's the kick. Not too many people know about this curve, this graph I'm going to tell you about. Um, start Starting in World War II, there was a productivity graph that basically went up to the right at a 45-degree angle. Productivity versus wages. We became more and more productive, and we made more and more wages, which was good. The more productive we got, the more wages we got. But somewhere around the mid 70s, and that's why we're in the state we're in now, productivity continued to rise and is still rising basically at a 45-degree angle, but our paychecks is flatlined. And an old guy tell me some years ago, he says, yeah, back in the 70s, we may have been only making $10 an hour, but that was really good. But now, he's telling me this story in the 90s, and he's saying, it's gone to shit now. Nobody's getting wages. No one's getting raises, rather. Our compensation isn't keeping up with productivity. So the richer are getting vastly richer, and the middle class is disappearing. They're making less and less money. The prices of things are inflating, but their wages aren't inflating nowhere near to keep up with it. They say the average cost of living is supposed to be somewhere around 3.5%. You got Trump talking about, oh, we went up 4% this month. They say, oh, look, Obama only went up 2. I mean, you could argue about what those numbers are and whatnot. But, between 2 and 4, sometimes it's 0, sometimes it's a little more. But, 3.5 is what economists say we should be aiming for increased GDP kind of productivity kind of thing. Well, who gets a 3.5% cost of living raise? Years ago, I had a job that I got a cost of living raise. I bet you most people today don't even know what a cost of living wage is. That was built in. Whatever the cost of living was for that year, you got that raise regardless of any other wages that you might have got. Your paycheck never got below the cost of living. And that's what's been happening now. Even though some people's wages are going up, it's not staying with the cost of living, so they can't live. They they're doing crazy things. It brings out the worst in people. They behave badly. I mean, look at the things that business do. Somebody gave it a real good definition to me the other day. They called it cowboy capitalism. Capitalism, make the best of a situation, make the most amount of money that you can in a situation, use the best, smartest use of your time, talent, material, machinery, capital, whatever it is, you capitalize. You do the best that you can with what you've got. Well, now, cowboy capitalism is the same thing, but add this to the mix. Do whatever it takes to succeed. Beg, borrow, steal, cheat, connive, break the law, do anything. I mean, you just look what corporate America's doing. That's what they're doing. Every once in a while they get caught. Cowboy capitalism. That's what they've brought us to. Yeah, I saw this girl out in the country. You go a little further out from where I live. You're truly out in the country where they grow food and they have lots of cows and stuff like that. And I see this girl stop into a convenience store. She's wearing a T-shirt. It says, "I farm, you eat." You know, that's kind of deep. I farm, you eat. Just imagine how many of us couldn't support themselves if there wasn't this infrastructure, these trucks barreling into our towns with all this stuff for Stop and Shop. Imagine if Stop and Shop wasn't there anymore. Where are you getting your food? Yeah, cowboy capitalism. Think about it. I mean, Well, you know, the small communities, you know, look at the Amish, right? Because they're not living above their means. They can grow their own food, they can fix their own horse and buggy, you know, they raise their horses. Oh, and globalization, oh my God. I'm kind of reading backward in chat, Ahmed, trying to catch up. Yeah, perception, yeah, money. It's faith. You perceive it as being worth something. Yeah, globalization. I failed a test answer once, um, because I wouldn't drink the Kool-Aid. Colleges push a certain propaganda, political agenda. This is back when Bush was saying something about no child left behind and globalization. And the question was, what? Explain what the New World Order is. And the New World Order at that time wasn't the same New World Order that Adolf Hitler had been using. It was what Bush and these globalists were using, where the global society, all businesses are going to be global and connected together, and it was supposed to be good. Well, no, it's turning out to be a bunch of crap. What it is the American wage is going down while the peasant farmer in China, in bare feet, his wage is going up. So we're subsidizing the peasants of the world. We're bringing them up economically while we drop down. And Pete, there's a large group of people that are noticing this. And right now, Trump is not a globalist, and it's becoming a dirty word. It happens to be my personal philosophy too. You know, we do all live on the same planet, and it's becoming smaller and smaller. But I mean, you know, charity starts at home. You know, we got the middle class disappearing. I mean, America, one of the strongest, largest economies. I think it is still the largest, but China's supposed to surpass us in 2020-ish or something like that. In a country like America, we shouldn't have the level of poverty that we have. You know, all these people living in cardboard boxes and children going without eating and stuff like that. I'm getting a little chilly here. I'm going to step away from the mic really quick and put on a sweatshirt and close the door to this room. I'm in a 10 by 13 room, and I've got a 1,000 watt power supply in this computer. It acts like a space heater. So as long as I shut the room, it'll heat this room up pretty good. But I'm just sitting here, starting to get a little chilly. This is that safety green. I got a safety orange shirt and a safety fluorescent green type sweatshirt. I'm all about safety, man. I mean, you know, doing the kind of work I've done a lot, and even now the part-time work I do, you know, I'm out digging fence holes. I'm working around. There might be somebody else on the project with a backhoe or a bulldozer or a tractor, and I don't need some dumbass not paying attention, not seeing me, you know. So hey, and you know, like when I drive my motorcycle, it's the same thing. Uh, these people need to see you, or they're going to kill you. And I truly believe I'm not going to cause an accident and kill myself. It's going to be some dumbass on their cell phone, or someone not seeing me or doing something stupid, they're the ones that are going to kill me. So yeah, I love these colors. Thanks. You like? I got some. I got some. There's a place called Into the AM out of California. I got some really cool threads from them. It's called All Over Prints. Into the AM. Check out their website if you want to see some all over prints. It's pricey. It's pricey. But I've seen the inside of your house, Ahmed. You could probably afford a couple. Maybe one for your birthday or for Christmas. Talk to your wife, or don't tell her how much it cost. You're not going to get a $5 T-shirt from these people, and you're not going to get a $20 hoodie from them either. But they make a statement. They're unique, and I think the quality's good. And they are not made in China. They are not going to fall apart. Well, let me quickly go back, because that reminds me, I touched on this subject, but I never finished it. And that was back in the 60s, the Japanese were taking over our electronics market. And everybody was into transistor radios. Just think of it, when everything was vacuum tubes, these big radios weren't portable. So the transistor, which was one of the largest leaps in electronics, was when the transistor, and then the very small transistor, and then the microchip. But when we went from vacuum tubes to transistors, now everybody's walking around with a transistor radio, listening to music, listening to the ball game, and they flooded America with these cheap junk transistor radios. And they made more electronic stuff, record players and TVs. They made a lot of electronics, but it was all garbage. It was absolute garbage. They had a terrible reputation, cheap Japanese junk. Well, they turned themselves around. At that point, they were all about quantity, not quality. They sold tons and tons of junk. Well, they've turned it around, and now the Japanese have one of the best reputations for making high-class electronics and engineering, like their motors. The Toyota motor, the 12-valve overhead motor in the Honda. The American auto industry can't hold a candle to the engineering in these Japanese cars. So the Japanese learned to favor quality over quantity. And look at that worked out awesome for them. Well, now it's the Chinese flooding our market with junk. Try to buy something that's not made in China, and try to buy something made in China that's not junk. The button pops off the first time you wash it. After a couple washings, the pocket's tearing off. 2 weeks into it, the zipper breaks. I don't know how many hoodies I've got in clothes where the zippers broke. All made in China. All made in China. So Into the AM, their clothing is not made in China. Some of it's in Vietnam. I think it's Vietnam. But the prints are made on the West Coast. A lot of artists in California. So that's the finish on the cheap China junk. Hopefully they turn the corner and start to make some good stuff. Yeah, I try to buy American. I try to support my local economy. I try to go down to my buddy's hardware store whenever I can. And for small stuff, it doesn't matter. But it sometimes, if I'm going to save hundreds of dollars, or, a couple $20 bills, when I'm getting a big order of building material or stuff like that, I shop around. I'm not going to worry about a couple dollars, but when it gets to be too much, that's when I go to the big box store. I'll go to Home Depot or Lowe's and places like that. I shop online a lot now too, because being out, not in the middle of nowhere, but not being in the big city centers, your shopping is extremely limited. There's not a lot being offered, and especially if you have a discriminating taste, let's say. I'm a one percenter. I know good stuff when I see it, and I demand it. I want it. I can afford it. I don't want to buy the cheap garbage that everybody else is buying. I mean, just look at it. Try to buy something of good quality. It's really hard to find good stuff. So I go online because now I'm shopping. The entire world is at my disposal when I go online through Amazon. Yeah, spend that time with your kid. I'm going back a ways. I figured out my happiness, gave up a very well-paying job. I did something similar to Ahmed some years ago. I got out of the building trade mostly because my body was getting shot. Being 45 years old, framing houses doesn't mix. Your knees. I mean, I'm a big guy. I'm well over 6 foot, 6'1". I, I don't know. I think I'm probably shrinking now because I'm getting older. 200 pounds. So, when I put a beam on my shoulder, the guy says to me, Tom, you should see your spine, because all that weight on my shoulder was just kind of making my back look like scoliosis. And of course, the pain and all that. And like, you know what? I don't need to make all this money anymore. I turned into a cabana boy. I started cleaning swimming pools for a living, repairing swimming pools. I mean, the pay was much less, but it wasn't killing me. Then I went back into the industry and started inspecting manufacturing parts and the whole mechanical engineering thing. Working at I wouldn't call it a desk, I'd call it a bench. It's halfway between an office desk and a machine. I worked in a machine shop, but I had a bench desk type thing where I inspected stuff and worked off the computer a lot. Gave up the bigger money I was making because it was just killing my body. I said, when I get to be 80, I'd like to be able to still walk without a cane. So I gave up the big dollars. I didn't have family, so it's not like it was to spend time with my family. But I mean, your family is going to hopefully be there for you when you need them, Ahmed. If you're not there for them now, there's a chance that they're not going to be there for you later. Like I was telling you in a story a little bit earlier tonight, my parents were divorced by the time I was 5 years old. And we got nothing from that guy. No economic support, no visits. There was a couple, but I mean, that was basically 0.001%. I mean, we never saw the guy. We never got nothing from the guy. And so, later in life, I wasn't there for him. Had no bonding, no attachment to that person. I've heard of horror stories on it where some aging parent decides to make a economic move and give their money and house to their son or daughter to save on taxes and all that stuff. And this dude, once his dad gave him the house, he kicked him out, told him to hit the road. And I've heard of that happening a couple times. Imagine that. Your dad signs over his house, his bank account, in in hopes that you're going to take care of him, and you just tell him to hit the road, become a ward of the, oh my God. You got to wonder what kind of childhood, how did somebody get to that point to treat their parents like that? Yeah, the money you save on the traveling. My brother's at that point, like I was saying earlier, he travels like well over an hour to get to his job. He's making killer money. But he knows there's going to become a point where he's not going to want to do that anymore. I told you how my grandfather and his brother started up a manufacturing business in the local area. He's going to give up that higher pay. He's going to go into that shop and do the same kind of job for considerably less money, but he's 5 minutes away, maybe 10, not 10, maybe 6.5 minutes from his house. That's a lot. That's a lot. When I was doing the building trades, it was nothing to travel an hour and a half to get to a job site. And you never knew where you're going to be working. I mean, that's what you had to do because you had to go where the work was. And so after that, I'd hear somebody complain that, some basic factory worker making minimum wage complaining that he's got a half-hour drive to work. I'm like, dude, a half-hour drive to work. That's enough time to eat your breakfast and drink a coffee. I mean, at half an hour, consider yourself blessed. I mean, that's great. But what makes those commutes worse? Like I befriended this guy out in California. He's in Silicon Valley, and even though he's only, I forget how many miles he is, 20 miles or something. It's not that far from his work. It takes him like an hour and a half to get there because he's got no other route other than these big congested highways that even though the speed limit might be 65 miles an hour, you're doing 20 or you're stopped. The traffic is just killer. So, if he could just take a helicopter, he'd be there in 5 minutes. But the commute is just killer. Well, not to mention the gas, but the wear and tear on your vehicle. Like my wife is fortunate; she works for a major corporation, world dominant in the field, and she's able to work at home. She used to have to commute into the city, and she did for years. She operated a van pool. They gave her a van and well, a company van to use. It wasn't hers personally, but they van pooled. And I just had this conversation with her the other day. I think she said, call it an hour. It's an hour commute. That's 2 hours of your day every day that's gone. But now she gets to work at home. And believe me, I notice it because I'm the one changing the oil every it used to be 3,000 miles when the car was new. Now it's more like 6,000 or a little more. And I tell you, those commutes, I was constantly doing oil changes, let alone the brake jobs. Once you've gone through your first set of brakes, the second set of brakes doesn't last as long, and the third set of brakes, it just, the brake jobs and a lot of wear and tear on the vehicle. A lot of wear and tear on the vehicle. My brother, who's not a mechanic and pays other people to do that kind of stuff, he's constantly buying new vehicles. A lot of that big paycheck that he makes goes towards vehicles. Mohammed, you sound like a family man, and that's good. That's good. Um, I never was. I made the choice when I was very young, because like I said, I was dirt poor when I was young, and my parents were divorced when I was 5, and that had a big effect on making me the person I am today. And I also, while growing up through high school, I saw all the fighting that almost all of the parents were doing of all the friends I had. I saw all the divorces that were ruining men economically. And I just told myself that I'm not going to let that happen to me. I'm not going to do that to children. I'm not going to do it to myself. I admit that it was selfish. I'm like, I'm going to live my life for myself. Because face it, when you have kids, your life is now for them. You live your life for them, and that's totally cool. That's natural. That's cool. But I dared to be different and wasn't afraid of it. Of course, there's a price to pay for that. I'm not going to have kids to take care of me when I'm old. And we're the youngest of all the other brothers and sisters. So we'll be taking care of them. Like when they're 90 or 85, we'll be 80 or 75 taking care of them. But when we're 85 or whatever, there's no one after us. There's no other brothers and sisters younger than us, and there's no siblings. So we're going to have to rely on our money to pay other people. And luckily it worked out. We'll be able to do that and not become a ward of the state, God willing. Yeah, children are the future. Yeah, it's scary, you know. It's scary, and it's not just from the perspective of our generation, but our parents said the same thing that I'm about to say. And their parents, our grandparents, said the same thing about their children, our parents, that kids are getting worse and worse. Like our grandparents, here's a good example. Like when our grandparents were going to do some vandalism when they were teenagers, you know, the idle hands being the devil's workshop, they'd go out and tip the neighbor's cow over. Well, now the kids are setting the cow on fire. The behavior is crazy. It's crazy how you know, in the way they shoot each other. You know, it used to be the gangs would have fist fights, or they'd hit each other with a chain, or a small club, or a baseball bat. They rarely killed each other. They kind of beat the crap out of each other, but you know, they didn't crush a dude's skull in with the baseball bat. Now that's exactly what they're doing. It's the evolution of how competitive and nasty each generation is getting. But I'll tie that in back to something I was saying earlier about evolution, putting us in a spot right where we probably belong. Um, I've seen some nature shows and it shows that the most aggressive species is the one that survives. You get a certain red squirrel moving into a neighborhood that was all gray squirrels, and the red squirrel, even though it's smaller, it's very aggressive, and it takes the place of the gray squirrel. So this is just one little war between a small neighborhood of two types of squirrels. But, you know, if you extrapolate on that, the big picture, you know, the underlying definition, meaning was that the aggressive species is the one that survives. And so our children are getting more and more aggressive over the generations. And as though, you know, the duality of nature, again, although it's a horrible thing, there's a good side to that. I don't know if you can see the good side to that. I mean, hopefully that's going to be a positive outcome. Did you see the movie The Time Machine, where that guy makes this movie goes back to the mid-50s or something. Guy makes a time machine. He goes back in time, and he finds this race of human beings that were so, I don't know, at one point technology was so advanced that these humans never had to do anything. Yeah, it was a great movie, but there was a big underlying message, morale tale underneath that, Ahmed. These humans became spoiled. They didn't need to work for anything. They sat around in their tunics near the pretty grass in the water, and they ate fruit. And even though those creatures were feeding off of them every once in a while, they didn't know anything. They were dumb. They had libraries they never read. They couldn't take care of themselves. If it weren't for those creatures, those Helocs, that were basically farming them for food, these humans, right, they were cattle. So they evolved to this point where they couldn't take care of themselves. So there was no future in it for them. If they weren't being raised as cattle, they couldn't survive. And the guy in the time machine, he took 3 books back with him, right? That'd be a good discussion. I thought, geez, if I was going to do that, if I was going to try to save a civilization, I had access to a library and I was going to take 3 books. What 3 books would I bring to try to get the society to start taking care of itself? And it just dawned on me. I don't know if it was in another movie or if it was in that movie too, but it was the same idea. Somebody went back in time and they were explaining to somebody before technology really was a thing. They said, you're going to get people that are going to spend a lifetime studying the left leg of an ant. And this other guy is going to spend a lifetime studying the leaf on a tree. And all these different individuals are going to be spending lifetimes studying these little minutiae details. And when they put them all together, your civilization is going to have so much technology and knowledge, and you're going to have so much power from it. But instead of helping these people along, it backfired. And these people said, really? If I have to spend a lifetime studying some meaningless little thing, I'm not going to do it. And so the culture crashed. It became nothing. It disappeared when they had no future. The guy went into the future and they weren't there. He killed them. He thought he was helping them. I'm not sure how I got on that subject, but let me catch up on chat a little bit, see if I missed on something. Yeah, well, you know that paradox about time travel. I don't know if you saw that. My Family Guy. There, I'm not a. I like the humor in that. So, like, if I'm gonna watch TV, I watch Turner Classic Movies because there's no commercials, and I love watching old movies. That's another subject I could get into later. But while waiting, because there's often 15 minutes in between movies, so I'll turn on something. So I find a Family Guy. Anyway, there's this episode where Stewie, if you know the show, you got to know the show or none of this is going to make any sense. Stewie, the little genius baby who can talk and make time machines, goes back in time with a dog who can talk. And they did something that changed the past, which changed the future. So they had to go. Yeah, so you know who I'm talking about. Yeah, it's funny. I love, it's a cartoon, so you think it's a child show, but it's not. I mean, the undertones of adult humor and, the cultural things that it's talking about, referring to, they're vague references on adult social stuff. It's adult humor. It's not for kids. Same thing with South Park. But anyway, point is, they wrecked the future by going back and they just, I don't know what they did. They changed some little thing in the past. So they had to go back and change it. Well, they did it wrong. And they kept trying to do it. And they kept bumping into themselves. I don't know if you saw this episode, but it went from 1 pair of Stewie and Brian's to 2 pair, then 3, then 4, then 5, then 6. And it was just a really convoluted cluster of people just all trying to not change that one thing that ruined the future of mankind. And finally, they got it right. Point being is, you go back into the future, you think you're helping, and you're not. You're going to wreck it. Don't do anything. Don't say anything. Don't touch anything. Well, yeah, the kids have to see it, live it, so it becomes the norm. I don't know. There's something very special about this time in history. I really think my generation was the generation of the soccer mom. Think about it. The soccer mom. That never existed before. And at the same time, they're coupling that with the video game. I grew up playing with sticks and rocks in the dirt, crawling through the woods, catching insects, hiking through the woods, climbing trees, skiing, ice skating. I'm at the end of the baby boomers, and when I was young, I lived in a project, not like the projects you know of in the inner cities, but they were all basically poor people living on a subsidy. There was always enough people to have a baseball game, a football game, basketball in the street. None of us sat in the house playing video games. In the social media, I had a picture on my website. I think I changed, not my website, my Twitch page. It was titled social media, and I didn't think too many people would have I don't know, the wit to catch my drift. But I took a picture offline that showed something like 6 or 8 kids all leaning against a wall, all holding their phone down to their waist, all looking down at their phones, totally obsessed with their phones. Now, here's a group of kids that should be looking each other in the eye, talking to each other, discussing, playing games, but instead, they're just standing next to each other, ignoring each other, looking into their phone. The butterfly effect, yeah. The butterfly that flaps its wings in Brazil creates the hurricane in Texas. But you could apply that to lots of things like these kids. Maybe the kid who let's use Hitler or Stalin for example. Hitler, I know a little bit I know a little bit more about his childhood from whatever the historical accounts, whatever the accuracy is. He was beaten severely as a kid. He had a very messed up father and a very over mothering mother. And look what that made. I'm pretty sure if he was raised differently, he might not have been willing to play the puppet. Actually, a lot of people don't understand that he was chosen by a very upper elite group of people to fill that position. He didn't just do it on his own. He had backers who had a plan, and they saw it in him that he would be the one to be picked. I mean, think about it. I mean, that's kind of how things go even today. Even with Trump, um, there were the upper 1%, the true power elite. Those people are the ones that make presidents, choose presidents. Um, Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to be out there to be voted on. Yeah, we vote, but who we're voting for, I mean, it's chosen by them. So the kids are different now. They don't play and they don't work. They don't work. I don't know how many kids that would come to my job site and my boss would say, turn this guy into a carpenter. I'm like, oh, great. It's going to take me twice as long to explain to this kid what to do, and I could have done it twice. And I made the mistake too. I see a kid, I'm like, this guy looks promising. I can bring him into the inner circle. I can work with him. And I turned out to be totally wrong. The kid finally, his true colors show through. He's lazy. He don't show up to work. The first time he asks me for a ride to work, he's not there. Without calling me the night before or that morning. And nothing but a sorry dude the next time he sees me. They don't work. I spent a lot of time with one of my closest friends when he had a kid. We'd try to put the kid to work. We'd be out working on the lawn, we'd be clearing brush or digging a trench or, doing the roof, whatever we're doing, trying to get the kid to work. And the kid just wouldn't do it. Kids don't do that. I think these soccer moms, I don't know what it is, how it happened, but they don't have that work ethic. I don't know if it's affluence of the parents. The kids don't need to work. Like I said, when I was raised, I was dirt poor, and I worked every weekend. I'd work after school. I had a paper route. I'd go to my uncle's and I would do work. I'd work in the garden. I can remember one of my jobs was to take used bricks and chisel with a hammer all the mortar off these bricks so these bricks could be reused. I mean, yeah, millennials, you hit it right on the head there, right on the head, the millennials. It's a certain breed. I, I I follow a lot of streamers, lots of streamers, and some of them I interact closely with. And I was in a dude's page. He's got a Discord, like I've got a Discord. Peruse the Discord on it if you want to maybe find some interesting songs. I haven't populated a lot of stuff in there, but the point I wanted to make was I saw something in one of his sections, and I left a brief comment, positive comment, but I copied the link and I put it in my Discord so other people could be exposed to it as well. And I told him, I said, I hope you don't mind, but I want to use this because it's about the millennials. And this guy it's a 20-minute YouTube video describing this whole snowflake phenomenon, how people are becoming or they're pretending or acting or saying that they're so offended by something. And you look at how crazy some of this stuff is. One of the best examples, somebody said they're offended that Americans practice yoga. They are hijacking somebody else's culture, that they have no idea why yoga began and what its purpose is for, and the history of yoga, and how dare you they call it cultural appropriation. You are stealing yoga from, I don't know, is it India? I don't know who's the big practice, but really, you're so offended. Remember when it became political? Because this is all about political correctness. Remember when it became politically incorrect to dress as a pirate for Halloween, or to dress as a hobo because you're gonna offend a hobo? Some mother is going to see somebody dressed as a hobo and she's going to diss you in public, chase you with a camera and a cell phone. I could go on and on. It's one of the ways that people see the similarity and good things in others. Oh, I really, I wasn't going to pretend to know. Well, yeah, they should want to share. I mean, that's, you know, this brings me back to something. I didn't like this teacher in high school because he was so strict. But there was one thing he had. He was an accounting teacher, and I never took accounting. I was a science type major. But he was homeroom, and he had a little card pinned up on the top of his board. And get this, he said, if we each exchange $1, we still each only have $1. But if we each exchange one idea, now we both have two ideas. Now that's powerful. That's powerful. And why shouldn't we? I mean, I guess this is the information age, right? The control of information, the use of information. So it becomes what? Money? It becomes patentable. I don't know where you go with this, but if if you're chopping a tree down with a rock and you see that your neighbor picked up a sharper rock and he's having an easier time cutting down his tree, well, I would pick up a sharper rock to cut my tree down. And hopefully he didn't have a lawyer telling me that that was intellectual property and he had a patent on the idea of using a sharper rock to cut down a tree. So, if you could borrow from one culture and they can borrow from you, I mean, now you each have another idea. Isn't that the idea? I mean, it'd be nice to say we could improve the planet and all us warring countries could learn from each other at the same time while we spy on each other and war against each other. That duality of nature again kicking in. Isn't that funny? But yeah, we should be able to enjoy yoga and all these other things that people are getting ripping pissed about or pretended to be all upset about it. Well, yeah, you need to see other people as people too. I mean, that's the trick they do in warfare. I mean, one of the examples, World War II, um, that's they drilled that into the American soldier that the Japanese weren't people, they were animals. They were worse than pigs. They weren't people. So the soldier's mind would let him rip their guts out and kill him, like gutting a fish. It's not a person. You dehumanize the enemy, and that example is all over the place. The people that want their peasants to go to war dehumanize the enemy, so that they're the more apt to have their peasants do the killing for them. But once, and this actually, I mean, you may have seen this or not. There was an example in World War Two, World War Two, World War One. I forget. It might have been. It was. I think it was World War One. Um, Americans on one side of the line, Germans on the other. It's Christmas, and the Americans hear the Germans singing Christmas carols. And the front was only like 100 yards apart or something like that. And the Americans were doing the same thing. And someone came up with the idea to walk across, bring a bottle of wine or something and food, bread, whatever, and the Americans and the Germans, maybe they were Russians, I could be messing up the story, but the idea is the two sides got together and were friends. Yeah, right. And you know what happened after that? Those people that were on those front lines were all sent somewhere else because there's no way those people were going to kill each other after breaking bread with each other. very powerful concept in order to get people to kill each other. But, we're trying to talk about the good side. When you see the humanity in the other person, um, you know, good things come of that. You share the culture. I can remember when I was being taught all the propaganda that gets put on you and indoctrination in elementary school. Quick interjection, I say to people, it's really hard to get an education without surviving the indoctrination. Most people get indoctrinated. And the point I wanted to make was, I can remember how much fun and ridicule was forced on us about other countries, Russia in particular. They would make fun of all the other countries. Look how they do this. Oh, look what they eat. And you can fill in the blanks. I don't need to name countries. I don't need to name behaviors or food items. But they say, well, look at you. This is how you behave, and this is how you eat. You're doing it right. They're doing it wrong. There's something just extremely fucked up about that for an elementary school student to. And nobody talks about this. Nobody talks about this. You got to be really rich, and you have to afford to self-school your kids with very special teachers. Not just yourself, unless you happen to be capable, but otherwise your kid, he's going to go through the public school system, and that's what they're going to pick up. So political correctness. When you get time, Mom, it's 20 minutes long. You might take a look at it. It's all about the snowflakes and how these millennials, and they're a very small group of people. I don't know if it's 1%, 5%, 10%, but it's like the example of the squeaky wheel getting the grease. This small percentage of people are having a really drastic effect on the culture. Everybody's afraid to do something politically incorrect. And I think I refer to that on my Twitch page about political correctness and social norms. Kind of, take a back seat, man. Don't be afraid to say something that isn't politically correct. And I was just so glad to see that this guy posted that on his Discord channel. I'm like, hey, here, glad to see someone else isn't afraid to say something like this. I wanted to search Pixabay for a melting snowflake, and I wanted to put that in my art section. I saw one picture. I forgot to copy the link or copy the picture. It was of a melting phone, the old-fashioned phone that weighed about 5 or 7 pounds, and it had a rotary dial. The landline, it was on fire. That was art. I got a section on my Discord for art. I just haven't had the time to populate it with as much stuff as I like. I've got a strange sense of humor and strange wit. I don't know how many people can appreciate it. I decided not to put the snowflake on my front page because some people can be so offended, get offended too easily. Well, you know what I've been saying about political correctness, and every time somebody says the term political correctness, as soon as I can, I interject and I say, oh, whoa, wait a minute. Let me correct you. The accurate phrase is actually political cleansing. PC stands for political cleansing. I can't believe I've said the term this many times without saying this. Political correctness. I mean, words matter. Words matter. You know, one man's freedom fighter is another man's guerrilla warfare maker. You know, they're both the same, but one side calls him a guerrilla, the other side calls him a freedom fighter. Words matter. So when you take this idea of policing people's language and behavior and call it political correctness, well, you just chose a real pretty word, correctness. People want to be correct. People want to act like other people act. The Chinese have a saying, the bird that sticks his head up gets it cut off. It loses something in translation, but it means if you're not behaving like everybody else, you're going to pay for it. So you use this word correctness. Well, I want to be correct. Well, it's really political cleansing. People need to know it's social engineering at its most insidious. Political cleansing. Yeah, I look at political correctness. Why does it exist? You know, it does say something. What does it say? Is it a struggle for one group to gain political power that they didn't have? That could be one benefit of political correctness. You know, like there was a time when women in this country couldn't vote, and in other countries where they couldn't own property and they weren't even treated as humans, they had no power. And so, through political correctness, you know, the he she thing, replacing Superman with Superwoman, um, you know, maybe that's a positive effect, that maybe you can empower these groups of people that didn't have power at one time or another. But the bad thing about it, I mean, I don't even need to say the bad thing. We all know. We know what the bad thing is. It's just to get 95% of the world to change its behavior so that 5% is happy. I don't know about you, but I strongly believe, I think it was something I picked up in a sci-fi thing. It might have been Star Trek. What is it? The rights of the many outweigh the rights of the one, or the benefit or well-being of the many outweigh the benefit or well-being of the one. And we've turned that around. We're getting 99% of our country to bend over backwards economically, physically, politically, you name it, just so that 1% can get a leg up. I mean, this is probably a poor example, but look at handicap accessibility. I don't know, it's probably a small percentage of our population that needs handicapped accessibility. And hey, let me say this, I'm all for handicapped accessibility. But when you make it a law and you fine people because you're making them conform to this new law now they lose out. They can't, and this is a bad example because handicapped accessibility is a thing, but there are other things that aren't things. They're made up things and they don't need to be adhered to, but we are. Freedom of speech. Yeah, well, you know, that's a big thing about what that video was about. It was free speech. He uses the example. I'll give you about 3 or 4 minutes of this video was about this one comedian who had a wife who had a little pug dog. And she thought everything that dog was cute no matter what it was. I mean, that thing could shit in his Cheerios. and she would think that that was so cute. Well, being a comedian, he comes up with this idea to teach that pug something so repugnant, pun intended, that there's no way she could think that that behavior he was going to teach that dog was going to be cute. So he teaches this pug to do the Sieg Heil Nazi salute every time he says, gas the Jews. Horrible, politically incorrect thing to do, right? To make fun of gassing the Jews. But this is a comedian now. And so he teaches this, he taught this dog to do the Nazi salute every time he said, gas the Jews. I think that's hilarious. I don't think gassing Jews is hilarious. I don't think the Holocaust is hilarious. But this is comedy. And you got to have a certain sense of humor to appreciate that. Anyway, somebody took a video of it. It went viral. He got sued. They brought him to court, and they fined him. They only, I think he was from Scotland or England, somewhere in that area. 800 pounds was his fine. But the idea that there was even grounds for being arrested, to actually be found guilty, sets a precedent. They've got it worse overseas, from what I've been gathering about these kinds of losses of freedom of speech and things like that. England, Britain, that area. There's a couple other countries over there in Western Europe that have really, their rights are really getting beat to crap, and we're next in line. So this guy lost his freedom of speech to make a joke. Just imagine now what president that said. Just think of all the jokes that make fun of minorities or handicaps or anything. It's becoming politically incorrect to do anything like that. And this is a watershed moment, that case, where that guy was found guilty. And it's totally obvious to me that it was a show trial. The judge said that he believed that that trick he taught that dog was actually a conspiracy to spread the idea that this is a good thing to do, to gas Jews. Now, what person in their right mind can believe that's what that guy wanted? Now, if you could prove through his history and his social media history that he was some kind of neo-Nazi freak, that he was making speeches that was saying how he wanted to gas Jews, if you could build up a case. But the history was, he was a comedian. This is what he did for a living. So it's totally obvious that the judge didn't care about what the evidence was. He was doing what they call legislating from the bench. He wasn't following existing laws to punish this guy. He was just punishing the guy because he could. You couldn't make a law that made that illegal, but a judge can legislate from the bench, and we all know how that's going on with the Ninth Circuit Court out there, and the way the Democrats are blowing away everything Trump is doing because they got these judges that legislate from the bench. And it's not just them; the Republicans do it too. They're all getting judges that will rule in their favor. A quick side thing: the way the Republicans do it is they do it with what do they call it? I don't know if you remember when that woman burnt herself with the McDonald's coffee. They, they had this propaganda thing where they said you don't want to see frivolous lawsuit. They called it a frivolous lawsuit. So they put judges in place that will vote against people getting large sums of money paid to them through court, like that woman won in court. So instead of being able to win $4 million, they cut it down so that you can only win $100,000 or something like that. And they put people in charge of what do they call it? Binding mediation, arbitration, binding arbitration, where you don't go to court. And the way it goes is if the binding arbiter doesn't vote for the benefit of what's usually Republican ideas, vote pro big business, vote against the little guy trying to get legal justice for being screwed over because some company screwed him over, either poisoned him with asbestos or whatever. If they don't vote that way, well, they never work. They don't get work. So they're both packing the court. They're both doing the same thing. They're legislating from the bench. Yeah, I saw a special on that hot coffee thing. Yeah, that old woman, I guess the cap wasn't on too well. She spilt that whole hot coffee right in her crotch in the seat. They showed the medical pictures that were taken in the hospital. She suffered third-degree burns. Now, third-degree burns are just words. When you see a picture of a hole a half an inch deep, the size of both your palms on each of her thighs, burnt down to the muscle. Oh my God, it was horrific what damage that lady did to herself. And that's the other side of this. She did it to herself. Coffee's hot, we all know that. But the trick and why she won is because of McDonald's internal documentation. They had many, see, Ahmed, this is the shit I spend my life doing instead of watching The Bachelorette. I'm watching some kind of. Oh, good. Then you know. Yeah. Um, I'll just quickly gloss over to finish it. Yeah, McDonald's had all that documentation, how many people were complaining about the temperature of their coffee. And their internal documentation kept saying, hey, our coffee's too hot, we got to turn it down. This is the temperature, it's always this temperature. And they weren't doing anything. So it becomes negligent. Once you know that a problem exists and you do nothing, well, now you're negligent. And if you know the law, that's the last word you want used against you, to be negligent. If you know there's a problem and you're showing an attempt to solve it, you're not negligent because you're trying to solve it. You're showing that you know it exists because you're trying to solve it. But if you can't deny knowing it, which is the first thing cowboy capitalist is going to do, he's going to deny knowing that the issue existed, then you have to show an attempt to be solving it. And they were doing the exact opposite. Yeah, it's like that. I'm a real serious individual. Um, my default setting is to be serious, but it seems to be rare. I mean, I love having discussions like this, especially when there's a room of people face to face where we can. I know how difficult it is to uphold a conversation on that end of the screen when you're typing in 10-word sentences. It's really hard to make a good, phrase. Well, being a free thinker is very, very difficult because as much as we try to we still have these things ingrained in us from youth. Like I was raised Roman Catholic, and I constantly find, those kind of tenets holding me back because, I used to have my own business, and if I wasn't willing to lie to customers, then I wouldn't get the job. And I was not willing to lie to customers. I wasn't willing to take advantage of employees. I actually had a guy tell me to go next door and steal a 2x4 because we needed one on the job. I refused to. And so, if you're not willing to sacrifice the morals that you learned as a youth, it hurts you economically. I mean, cowboy capitalism, right? You got to be willing to beg, borrow, steal, lie, cheat, break the law, do all that stuff to be successful. I'm not saying everybody does that. That's not true. Everybody doesn't do it, but a lot of it is done. Yeah, I understand, Ahmed. I understand, and I'm trying to keep the conversation going. That's my job, is to keep the conversation going. If I can spur you into saying something, or better yet, if I could just put the bird in your ear to get you to think about something that you didn't know, that'd be great. 'Cause another part of my background is teaching. When I was going through college, I didn't go back. I went into the Army a couple years after college, or first after high school. I went to college, but I was too young and partying too much and too wild and crazy. That didn't work. So I went to work. I worked for a couple of years, and I realized, holy shit, this kind of money isn't going to get me anywhere. I got to do something. At that time, I was still dirt poor. I'm like 19 years old and living at home. So I'm like, okay, Uncle Sam, Yahoo, here we go. You're going to pay for my education because I can't afford it, because I tried. When I first went to college, I was trying to work my way through college, and oh my God, I don't know how these people do it. Some of these women, they go to college, they're raising a family, and they're working. Oh my God, I can't do it. I don't know. I can't admit it. I'm weak at that. I got to give them all the credit in the world how they do it. God bless them. Oh my God. Oh my God, how they do that. So I let Uncle Sam pay for my college. So I didn't go back to college until I was older. And I went back part-time while I was still part-time, while I was working. Point being is, at that point, being more mature than the rest, and I don't know, I was always really, really goddamn smart. I was getting A's in everything, so I could peer tutor. Whatever you got an A in, you could teach that course to others. So, and I got paid to do it. And you'd come see a peer tutor, and I'd be in the room, and I could help everybody with their math and their science and their this and their that and everything else. And so there's something about me that I like to teach people. And here, this goes back to that thing where if we each exchange an idea, now we both have two ideas. A lot of people, they keep their information to themselves because they're so afraid that their competition, the people around them, is going to somehow rise above them. So they need to keep their knowledge secret, whether it's a secret way to swing your hammer so you don't get tendonitis, or it's a secret way to hunt a deer, or a secret way to run your machine at work while you're trying to make it look and keep it clean. Reference there if you get it or not. Jay Giles. I actually had a guy say to me, yeah, job security, exactly. I had a guy say to me one day, well, fuck you then, I ain't going to tell you. Like he had some secret information that was going to make me money and change my life. I've always shared my knowledge with everybody else. No trade secrets with me, because I always felt comfortable that I was going to rise above the rest anyway, because I'm really good at what I do. There's a lot of things I can do. I don't need to keep job secrets for job security. So I like to teach people. I love teaching people. I love spreading the ideas and spreading that kind of stuff. So if I can teach somebody something they didn't know, if I can wake up their mind to something, it doesn't need to be political. We don't have to talk about politics, although, everything is in play here. We've talked a lot about politics, but, I would love to tell you how to fix your washing machine. I'd love to tell you how to fix your car. I would love to tell anybody how to do anything that I know how to do that they want to know how to do that they don't. It's almost obscene. Yeah, exactly. I mean, it rises everybody. What's the saying? A rising tide raises all ships, right? And this is the information age. Information is power, right? I mean, if you know your history, look back to the printing press when the only people that went to college were theologians to learn Latin so they could be priests, because that was the big paying job back then. Your kid would do very well for himself if he could get into the clergy, because they didn't have books. I mean, it took like a year to write a book, right? Because they're each handwritten. They didn't have a printing press. So the Gutenberg printing press, 1550-ish or whatever, somewhere's around there. Of course, the Chinese did it first, but Americans are taking credit for the Gutenberg in around 1500-ish or whatever it was. So now you're making books. So now you're educating the public. Ooh, now that's a bad thing. The king doesn't want an educated public, right? So, us peons, we should be working at educating each other so we have a fair shake against the king. Otherwise, we're being divided and conquered, and we're all keeping our information secret because we think we're the one that's going to get that 25-cent raise and not the guy next to us because we know something that he don't know. But back to being obscene, the amount of money that these people make for what they do. One of the best examples I did recently, I told you how I put in a tankless hot water heater in my house. Yeah, we want that, but the government doesn't want that, Ahmed. And there's a real telling, and not too many people find out about this. Um, the Hillary emails that got printed, one of the senators got caught saying, it's documented. See if I can word it just right, but I might not get the words exactly. I gotta stop doing that. What he said was, well, we finally succeeded in engineering a compliant or a supplement, a supple society, but we still haven't been able to control them. He said that. And I've been saying for years, and there's been other people too, that's their goal. That's what they're doing. They want to farm us like cattle. They're through indoctrination and propaganda. They're I've been saying this for a while. They're breeding the rugged individualistic behaviors out of us that once made this country great. They're breeding it out of us. It's no longer politically correct to be self-reliant. That rugged pioneer that did stuff. Now that's all bad. They're breeding that out of us, turning us into milksops, litigious. We're suing each other because we tripped on our neighbor's crack in his sidewalk and we had to pay our dentist a couple $100 to fix our chipped tooth. Well, he tripped on the crack. So, you see what they're doing to us? You know, I'm not like that. I uh, I actually I broke my arm because of something that happened on somebody else's property. But I did it. It was my fault. Yeah, the situation existed on his property, and the law would have allowed me to sue him to pay for my doctor bills. I refused to do it. I did not do it. And that was years ago. It's over. I would never do that. But I know so many people that it's a very litigious society. We sue for the smallest things. They're turning us into a population that is really heavily reliant on their government to take care of them instead of being self reliant, like I said, and being able to take care of ourselves. So this politician got caught in one of those Hillary emails, basically let the cat out of the bag. That's their goal. That's what they're trying to do. They're halfway there. And, part of the equation is suppressing the information that, like, I'm trying to spread and other people are trying to spread with false information of their own. Um, my beagle is standing in front of the studio door, so he's telling me I got to bring him out to go pee, and my wife is in bed. If I don't take him out to pee, he'll just pee right on the floor. So I gotta walk away as though I know it's horrible. It's not what a streamer wants to do. Oh, good. I hope you're here when I come back. Really, 5 minutes, maybe less. Okay, I'm back. Hey, no worries. It was good talking with you. I got to get to bed, my friend. I have to hit the bed. Sorry, it's 2:20. I'm here. Work home, but still working. Yeah, it's 2:24 here too. Good night, Ahmed. If you're still there, I'm been trying to catch your stream. I keep an eye out for you, and I'll see you at Die Dragon Jai. Right. Good night, buddy. Let's see. This originally started as a test, but my buddy Ahmed stopped in and got me rambling, visiting. So, okay, I got 2 viewers at this time. So if I shut the stream off now, I'm not going to be, oh, we got a third person, okay. I was just getting ready to sign off because I was just doing a test. And a buddy stopped in, started chatting, and time was rolling and rolling by. Another guy stopped in, said hello. Let me see if I can find him in the earlier chat. He didn't say an awful lot. It was me and D&D Action Junkie talking about all kinds of politics and stuff like that. Oh, I zoomed right by him. Here he is. Solar UAV. I hope he meant sick in a good way. I see a couple more lurkers in the chat. I'm not calling you out. You don't have to say a word if you don't want to. I never know when these people that come into the stream if they're bots or not. Because I swear to God, look at that. I've been talking for hours. My tongue is tied. Twitch sends bots into the channel to spy, and other bots for various reasons. So when I see the viewer count raise, I never know if that's really a person. Should I be talking to that person? Or is it just a bot? Am I wasting my time? Right now, this basically turned into a talk show. I probably should have gone in and changed the testing to talk show, but I didn't realize it was going to turn into what it turned into. Let's see. Yeah, I'd say I've been discussing politics and all kinds of issues with not so much politics, Republican, Democrat, just political theory in general and society and stuff like that for oh geez, 2 hours. But I suppose anyone could scroll through the chat to get an idea about some of the, at least his end of the discussion. I just want to take a note right here, try to keep track for the health of the stream, because the way I look at it is, even though this is my stream and I'm God, I can do whatever the hell I want unless I piss off Twitch and they ban me, or the CIA or FBI or something like that comes in and shadow bans me or shuts me off or whatever. Not that I'm that controversial or doing something so what would be subversive to a government would shut me down. It's not that. I lost my train of thought because I'm trying to think of something else. Trying to write down the date. What is today? Because a guy like me often doesn't even know what day it is. told a guy I'd stop in and visit him on his stream Saturday, and I was looking for him on Sunday. I thought it was Saturday. I mean, Eastern Standard, which is where I am, it's 2:30. I could easily be up to 6 in the morning, 10 in the morning, sleep a couple hours, or many hours. So you kind of, one day bleeds into the next. You kind of lose track of exactly what day is it. I kind of think that's a good thing. I mean, it's better than running the rat race, like anyone could notice on my Twitch page, that I try not to live my life according to clocks and calendars.